The Chassid Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer was a big guy in Niggun, and he was a big businessman in the city of Vilna, and he was in the times of the Alter Rebbe. In the beginning, he was not mekusher to the Alter Rebbe, and on the contrary, he was against. However, eventually, he was niskarev to Chassidus, and he became one of the big Chassidim. After the Alter Rebbe's istalkus, he became mekusher to the Mittel Rebbe. And during the Tzemach Tzedek's times, the Reb Zalmen visited by the Tzemach Tzedek one time. And he brought to the Tzemach Tzedek his sons, and he asked the Tzemach Tzedek to take care of them. Afterwards, when he came home, from that one trip to the Tzemach Tzedek, Reb Zalmen became very sick, and he went through a lot of suffering, and he became blind. And that went on for about 7 years, so he couldn't travel to the Tzemach Tzedek anymore. However, when the Tzemach Tzedek made some trips around the country, so the Tzemach Tzedek came to Kurenitz, and they spent some time together. Reb Zalmen was the mechuten of the Tzemach Tzedek, because the Tzemach Tzedek's son, Harav HaKadosh Reb Baruch Shalom, was a mechuten of Reb Zalmen. So too, Reb Zalmen was also a mechuten of Reb Mordechai Leplier, one of the famous Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. One time, the famous guy, Reb Shaul Ketzelbeigen, passed through the city of Kurenitz for some communal matter. So he stayed by the house of Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer's shver, father-in-law, Itcheroches. Zalmen Kurenitzer's shver, who was the host, prided himself in front of this guest, Reb Shaul, about his son-in-law, who was a big Ilui, who was a big Talmid Chacham. So Reb Shaul, the guest, asked to see him. So Reb Zalmen was brought into the guy in Reb Shaul's room. So Reb Shaul asked him, "Which Masechta are you learning?" So Reb Zalmen said, "On Milov Eruvin." However, Reb Shaul, the Gaon, asked him a question in Yevamais instead of Eruvin. And the answer that Reb Zalmen gave in the question in Yevamais was that the way I understood the Pshat in the Gemara a few blots before that blot that you're asking me about, the whole question doesn't even start. And that was the end of that conversation. So before the Gaon, Reb Shaul, left the city, he asked the host, Reb Itcheroches, if he could see his son-in-law again. He wants to say goodbye. And when he saw Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer, he said, "Are you going to say about me now that I'm a complete Amaretz?" So Reb Zalmen answered him, "I will say about you whatever you are." Afterwards, the guy Reb Shaul traveled to the nearby city, Viazhin. And over there was a very famous guy, Reb Yossel Viazhiner. And Reb Shaul told Reb Yossel Viazhiner about this 16-year-old son-in-law of his host, who's a tremendous guy. So Reb Yossel, who knew Reb Zalmen already, told him, "Vos, Zalmenke? Oh, you're talking about Zalmenke? He is such a chacham that even somebody who learned in Paris for 15 years science, let him have a debate with Zalmen Kurenitzer, Zalmen will win him." Eventually, Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer heard about the Alter Rebbe, and together with his brother-in-law, the son of his shver, and another one who joined them, they decided to travel to the Alter Rebbe. The one in charge of getting the money for the trip was Reb Zalmen's brother-in-law. Once they got the money for the trip, they hired a wagon from the city of Samargan, which was a nearby city, and they started the trip. They understood that when the people in the city will find out that they disappeared, a whole tumult will break out in the city. And for sure their mother-in-law will send people to get them back. And therefore, they told the wagon driver that he should not travel in the regular way. Rather, he should go off the road and go into the forest in order to go and feed the horses. And they all stayed in the forest for a while until they saw, they had a vision from the forest, they were able to see the road. So they waited until they saw the wagon of their mother-in-law passing by, chasing them. And then they waited for the Shviger's wagon to go back to the city when she gave up on finding them, and only then they came out of the forest and continued traveling. Eventually, they came to the Alter Rebbe, and Reb Zalmen told the wagon driver, when you come back home and when you travel back home and you pass through my city, Kurenitz, knock on the window of my wife's room and give her a message that we came peacefully, that we came b'shalom to our destination. If you will do that, my wife will reward you with a lot of mashke to drink. So the wagon driver fulfilled the promise, either because he liked to keep his promise or because he liked to drink mashke. And he did what Reb Zalmen asked. when he came in the middle of the night to Kurenitz, he knocked on the window, and he told Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer's wife that her husband came to his destination peacefully, and she gave him a whole bottle of mashke. So he drank and drank, and he became a little drunk. So he started to drive around with his wagon and 4 horses around the stores in the city square. And the following thing happened. One of the older balabatim came outside, and he saw somebody looks like a balagala with 4 horses driving around his horses around the stores. So that person thought to himself, for some reason I have a feeling that this wagon driver is the one who took away the best of our city, meaning Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer and his friends, to the cult, to the Chassidim. So in the morning, that person came to the Beis Medrash, that balabas came to the Beis Medrash, and he saw that in the middle of the night, I saw this wagon driver, and I'm sure that he's the one who drove them to the Chassidim, and the whole city was very sad from this bitter news that Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer and his brother-in-law and another friend became Chassidim. When Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer came back to Kurenitz, he brought with him the Alter Rebbe's new Siddur, and he started a new shul for the Chassidim, for the local Chassidim. That was the first Chassidish shul in Kurenitz. And since then, the Nusach of the Alter Rebbe spread in Kurenitz. And eventually, years and years later, the only shul that did not daven the Nusach of the Alter Rebbe was actually just one shul of Nusach Ashkenaz. But the 4 other shuls were all Nusach Ari, the Nusach of the Alter Rebbe. Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer was from the Cheder Rishon of the Alter Rebbe, and from the greatest ones in the Cheder Rishon. Cheder Rishon was the highest level. And after the Alter Rebbe was established, Reb Zalmen was very devoted to the Mittel Rebbe. And once the Mittel Rebbe said about him, Zamenke is asking me that I should say Chassidus on Eitz Chaim. But really, we're speaking about much higher levels than Eitz Chaim. One time, one of the Chassidim in Kurenitz came back from a trip to the Tzemach Tzedek. And when he came back to town, he chazered the mimer that he heard from the Tzemach Tzedek to the Chassidim. The mimer was about basar, gidim, ve'atzomos, meat, flesh, veins, and bones. And Reb Zalmen also heard the chazara. And when that chassid finished chazering the mimer, Reb Zalmen started to chazer another mimer about the same exact topic, but this time not for the Tzemach Tzedek. Reb Zalmen chazered the mimer about it from the Mittel Rebbe. And in the middle of him chazering the mimer, he remembered the Mittel Rebbe. So he burst out crying, and he couldn't finish saying the mimer. Was crying so bitterly, he couldn't speak. Reb Zalmen Kurenitzer was a very loyal friend of Rabbi Yamin Kletzker. One time, Reb Zalmen had to take a trip to a certain place, and before his trip, Rabbi Yamin Kletzker asked him for a loan. So Reb Zalmen told him, when I come back from my trip, I will lend you the money. However, when Reb Zalmen was away on a trip, he lost all of his fortune. But despite the fact that he lost all of his fortune, when he came back, he went ahead and sold his wife's jewelry, and he got 400 silver ruble for it, and he lent the money to Rabbi Yamin Kletzker. Reb Shmuel Groenem related that after this talkos of the Alter Rebbe, Reb Zalmen continued to travel to the Mittel Rebbe. And once, the Mittel Rebbe was in Kurenitz, Reb Zalmen's city, and he said a mimer there. And the mimer was Dibra Maschil Hecholzu. When he finished saying the mimer, the Rebbe asked Reb Zalmen, do you remember how the Rebbe, meaning the Alter Rebbe, said this mimer? And did you notice which part of it did I add from my own this time? So Reb Zalmen chazered to the Mittel Rebbe the mimer. And then he also pointed out what are the words that the Mittel Rebbe added. And this was a mimer that Reb Zalmen heard from the Alter Rebbe 30 years before that. And after 30 years, he remembered it so well that he knew exactly which words the Mittel Rebbe added. Reb Zalmen passed away on the night of Chav Kislev. The day before that, Yutes Kislev, Chag HaGeula, Reb Zalmen said a mimer on the pasuk Nafshoy B'Toiv Tolin. Toiv is Begimatria Yutes, and he spoke about the fact that the istalkos of the Mezritcher Magid was Dafka on this day, and also the fact that the Alter Rebbe's Geula was on this day. And later on that night, he passed away.
A Niggun von Kurenitz. Trio, ya mama mama mama, ya mama 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 yo, ya mama mama mama, ya mama 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 yo, and I, mama mama mama. Oy na 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 na. Oy na 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 na. Oy na 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 na. Oy na 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 na. Oy mama mama oy da 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 oy mama mama mama. Hey, ya, mama, mama, na da 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 dum, ya da 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 da, ya mama, 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 yo, ya da 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 dum, ya da 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 da, mama, 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 yo, da da da. Da 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 dum. Hey, da 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 dum. Oh, da 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 dum. Hi, mama, 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 boom, boom, boy. Hey, di 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 dum. Oh, di 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 dum. Ah, mama, 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 yo, na da do, na da dum, da da dum, da da do. Ya mama, 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 ya mama, ram. Ya na 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 da da yo nam. Ya mama. Ya mama, 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 oh, ya mama, mama, yo, ya na 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 ya da da yo ram, ya mama, 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 oh, ya da da yo nam, ya mama, ya mama. Ya mama ma yo enara ya mama mamoy. Noch a Nusach. Ya mama 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 ya mama mama. Ya ma yo na yo yeroy. Oy, na, 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 da, oy, nam. Re, ya, ma, 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 yo, na, na. Re, ya, ma, 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 yo, oy, oy, na, 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 oy, vey. Ya mama, ya mama, ya mama, 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 ya mama, yo, na. Ya mama, ya mama, ya mama, mama, oh, ya mama, yo, mama, 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 ya mama, ya mama, 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 oh, ya mama, yo, nam, mama. Amamam, ya mama yo enanaroy. Hey yo, ya mama mamam, yo, ya mama mama, mama mama, ya mama, ya mama, ya doy. Hey, ya mama mamam, oh, ya mama mamam, ya mama, ya mama, yo, ya da 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 dum. Hey, ya mama mamam, ma 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 ya ma la do hey ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 yo yo ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 yo na ma ma ya ma ma ya ma 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 yo ya ma 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 yo ay ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 yo na ma ma ya ma ma ya ma 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 yo na do